please help my channel grow. That's all I ask.
Years later, 6.5 hours later, a few inches later, day 2, day 3, day 4, a few moments later, 1 eternity later, 3 days later, 12 seconds later, 3:28
Please like my videos
AM,
and
3 weeks
subscribe
later, many months
so
later.
I can
So
grow
much
my
later that the old
channel.
narrator got tired of waiting, and they had to hire a new one.
Tomorrow for sure. Eventually, 12 o'clock midnight. 1 hour later, 2 hours later, 3 hours later. While Patchy pulls himself together, let's see how SpongeBob's party is shaping up. Meanwhile, 2 hours later, 8:01 p.m. The next day. Later, 20 minutes later, 6 hours later.
Thank you viewers
several
for
bad
viewing
puns
my
later.
videos on YouTube.
70 years later.
I would
Meanwhile,
like you guys,
6
please
hours
just
later.
hit the like button.
Later that same evening,
And subscribe,
several days later,
because when
6
I
months
upload
later,
videos,
2
you'll be the
hours
first to be
later,
notified.
1 minute 37 seconds later, 1 debt to society later, 4 to 6
I am
weeks
begging
later,
you guys
1
to
pair of
please
pants later, 8
like
hours
and subscribe
later,
my videos.
298 frozen patties later, 3 hours later, epilogue. The
I do
next day,
zombies
20 seconds later, 346
and multiplayer.
minutes later, much later. Meanwhile, at the Krusty Krab, 3 days later, opening night later, 3,000 years later. 1 week later, 7:59 a.m. 3 weeks later, 3 days later, 2 hours later, 2 hours later, 48 hours later, 8 hours later. The following
Please
Thursday,
like and
5
subscribe.
minutes later,
I need some
24
likes.
hours later, much
Help
later,
my channel.
much later, 7 hours later, epilogue. Several song-filled hours later, 3 days later, 15 minutes later, several months later, thousands of tears later, 16 paranoia-filled days later, 2 hours later, much later, yesterday, many hours later, 75 years later, 2 hours later, 1 extremely
I play with my
annoying shift
subscribers
later,
on
2 very boring
zombies.
minutes later, 3 hours later, 1 winner later.
Just hit me
the
up.
following day,
Send me a friend
meanwhile,
request.
Later, just then, what follows
Get
is
some
a
high
brief
rounds on the
construction
new map.
montage. We hope you enjoyed this brief construction montage. Meanwhile, back in the lowland,
Just
1
asking for
frozen
some likes
wasteland
and
later,
subscribing.
1 hour later,
That's all I
5
need.
hours later, 2 days later, later in the void, approximately 10 hours later, early the
I
next
haven't even
morning,
got one like on my
1
videos.
shift later, 2 weeks
And
later, 11 minutes later,
I've been on YouTube for about a month.
5 minutes
And
later,
I have about
a
40
lot of
something
boring math
videos.
later, 24 hours later, 1 week later, 1 long angry line later, 72 hours later, 2 hours later. Just then, by sheer coincidence, the next
Please,
morning, montage.
please.
The next morning,
Help
many
me.
tic-tacs later, flashback, and a flashback.
Help
The
my
very
channel.
next evening, 1 hour later. The next day, later, 4 to 6 days later, 4 to 6 more days later. The next morning, moments later, more moments later, 1 semester later, graduation day.
1 hour later.
80 months later, more moments later, 1 semester later, graduation day.
1 hour later.
80,000 impressions later, would you please stop imitating me? It is starting to get very annoying. 3,000 whoop-whoos later, soon after, later, moments later, the next morning, many unbearable hours later.
Free Guy is the #1 movie.